welcome back to my channel. I have taken a little bit of a hiatus in general. I actually filmed this past summer in early fall and had edited it, but as I was editing it, I got deeper revelation and I paused, and I had a very full season, and so I took some time. But I'm back and I want to share a little bit about my gardening journey. Gardening is a new hobby of mine. I've started doing it in the last couple of years. I live in an urban place, and gardening has become a really cool thing. I'm learning to grow food, but also it's such a common metaphor that's used in biblical language. And so I really wanted to dive into gardening to understand more the language of my Father in heaven. So I just want to take you along on some of the lessons I have learned and some of the revelation I've gotten through gardening, and I hope it encourages you and refreshes your soul today. So Isaiah 61 is one of my favorite passages. It's one I pray over the city I live in regularly, just because it's such a redemptive and beautiful passage. And God also gave me word that it's something over the city I live in, and it's something I intercede over my city with. But it's interesting how it ends. It ends with God causing the plants to come and spring forth. And later on, I was in Genesis 2, where he talks about how God made plants spring up only after he creates man so that they can cultivate it. And I think that's super interesting. I'll get into that a little bit later. And then I read in Colossians, specifically 1:5-6, and it says, "The faith and love that spring from the hope stored up for you in heaven, and about which you have already heard, is the true message of the gospel that has come to you. In the same way, the gospel is bearing fruit and growing throughout the whole world, just as it has been doing among you since the day you heard it and truly understood God's grace." What this means is that there is hope stored in heaven for us that springs up from faith and love. And I think that's interesting because hope deferred makes the heart sick. Is that because it takes our faith and love with it? That was something I was thinking about. But in general, I just was thinking so much about my tomatoes that I grew this year. And here you can see them. So in previous years, I attempted to grow tomatoes and grew like maybe a handful. This year, I started harvesting tomatoes in July, and yesterday was December 31st, and I was eating still some tomatoes. They've definitely slowed down. They're not producing like they were, but I did not buy a single tomato. I was so supplied with fruit, and I will say, one of my verses that was really crucial for me in 2024 was the one about first fruits and offering your first fruits, and test God with your first fruits and see how he will fill your barn houses. There's a couple different verses that talk about that, but I tested God on that literally. Not only with time, not only with money, but literally with my fruit. And so when God grew fruit for me, I gave away my first fruits. I offered it to other people. I had a feeling that God was going to show me the principle of offering your first fruits, and man, it was true. Like, God delivered. I had so many tomatoes. I had a lot of beautiful squashes, and I literally made pasta sauce, pizza sauce. You'll see later on. I made so many salads. I have like literally in my freezer still bags filled with like sauce from the tomatoes that I got to grow. It was just such a humbling and beautiful experience to see how God brought this forth, but also the partnership between me and him. I've planted several years in a row and I haven't seen such a great harvest in previous years, but the fact that I've not only continued to do so, but the fact that I also offered my first fruits this year, how that changed the game in what I got to harvest. And then in 1 Corinthians 3:6-9, it says, "I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow." And this has also been such a profound lesson in how I've planted in the past. And I don't know if you see in my original planter, I had tried also to grow bell pepper, but that did not take off. What took off was the tomatoes and the butternut squash. And so it's really like, you never know. Like, you can do your part of watering and planting, but it's still up to the Lord what will grow and how he will take care of that. I've been in awe of this experience with these tomatoes, but I realize it is prophetic of a much greater harvest that is coming. It isn't just tomatoes that are about to be harvested. There is a harvest of souls. And I have had the pleasure to help some people accept Christ and even baptize a friend last year. There's nothing more rewarding or beautiful than seeing someone accept Christ. And the problem is the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And so I'm calling the laborers, come, because the harvest is plentiful. There is so much beautiful harvest to gather. So I'm inviting you to come join. Parable in the Bible where there is a wedding feast, but no one's ready. Everyone's busy doing other things, but there is a harvest that is waiting to be harvested and turned into beautiful things. So I'm inviting you, but also I think it's so interesting that God did not bring the plants until Adam and Eve were created. He built them to tend and cultivate that. And it is God wants us to partner with him, and we have a humble job of the planting the seeds, of watering, and we may not see any fruit. In evangelism, I have had times where I've gone out and I've seen no fruit, but I know that if I do not grow weary, in due time I will reap a harvest. And I already saw that with planting tomatoes and so much more. So I just want to encourage you that there's a harvest, and the harvest is plentiful. God bless. I hope you have a great day. Bye. Happy New Year.